Hello and good evening to number 7 of GlenAllachie's lockdown tastings here on a Thursday night. For those of you who may not have joined us previously, my name's Ben Chambers. I'm the UK sales manager for GlenAllachie. And this evening I am joined by Ronan Curry, who is our APAC sales manager. And together, Ronan and I are going to be taking all sorts of questions and things from you, as well as, most importantly, going through 3 new releases, which we have been distributing over the last few weeks and months while we've been in lockdown. And there's something that little bit special, something that little bit different in that it's 3 hand fills that have come direct from our distillery. Something which normally you would only be able to purchase at the distillery. But we launched a small initiative, which we called Hand Fill for Heroes, whereby we were sort of trying to do a multitude of things. One, £10 from every bottle goes to support the NHS, but also launching something that a little bit different, that you can't get elsewhere, to try and support those retailers across Scotland that had lost a lot of their trade from tourism by the fact that the country had gone into lockdown and they no longer had the passing trade on which they relied. So it was twofold. It was to try and, one, help our customers, but also give something back to the NHS at the same time, whilst hopefully getting 3 great, or the ones that we're doing this evening, 3 great drams out to the public. So, Ronan, you ready?
How are we doing? I'm as ready as I'll ever be, Ben. Just trying to curtail your lengthy speeches and monologues that you have. That's the only reason I'm here. The other reason I'm here is to make your Wi-Fi look good. Because I think, there's something to be said for putting the 2 people with probably the worst Wi-Fi into one live stream, especially after the first time that we did that. So we could see how it goes, and if it all goes dark, then we'll just wing it.
Well, fingers crossed, everything seems to be going okay so far. We ran a couple of tests beforehand. We had one minor hiccup, but fixed. So just quick few hellos, seeing lots of familiar faces, a few new faces, I think, coming in. John Creasy, hello. Forgive my pronunciation of any of these names. Ali Milton, Catherine. Why did I pick this one? Catherine Baltruschat. So anyway, I'll just say Jeremy Watt, Karen. I give up.
We've not even hit the first whiskey yet.
No, I haven't. And the thing is, I have such a complex about mispronouncing people's names. I find it quite upsetting. Sort of myself, I really worry about it. So why I just went into that, I've got no idea. But anyway, shall we talk a bit about these whiskies before we start getting some questions coming in?
Yeah, we could fire into the first whiskey. I'm quite excited about this. I'm always excited to taste whiskey in general.
So there's been quite a lot. I mean, the first one we're going to do is our sort of distillery exclusive hand fill. It was a Chinkapin cask of GlenAllachie, 2008, 11-year-old, done at cask strength at 55.8%. Now, Ronan and I both have a little bit of an admission in that neither of us have actually tasted a Chinkapin cask whiskey before.
Oh, Ben, I was just lying to you. I've tasted this before.
Okay. Thanks.
I know. I was leading you on.
Okay. Well, Ronan's tasted this before. Apparently, I haven't. But so it's really, for me, for somebody who is a bit of an anorak, love tasting new woods, love tasting new finishes, to get something for the first time and to be able to bring it to you guys live is for me, is quite special. Ronan being the Joker, maybe not.
No, it's always good to sit down and sit with GlenAllachie fans, or maybe people that have not tasted GlenAllachie before, and introduce them to a whisky or a sort of wood type that they may have not heard of or experienced before. And something like the Chinkapin is quite unusual. There's not, if any, sort of say mass-produced or mass-released Chinkapin spirits or sort of whisky that have been in Chinkapin casks. So it's a really, really exciting dram. And it's as much as I joke, it's quite good to sit down and actually chat with people about it and maybe take some questions on Chinkapin, and I'll just make a few jokes. That's really what I'm here to do. Not particularly good jokes, but jokes nonetheless.
It's different. It's not, for American style or an American type of oak. It's not what I was expecting. A lot more sort of drying notes coming through, bit of aniseed, hint of pear drops. Doesn't necessarily have that sweetness that I was expecting.
I mean, the typical sort of GlenAllachie characteristics that you tend to get, I've tasted it, it really coats the mouth, full of flavour. Get a lot of the classics, the heather honeys, the fruits, apricots coming through. But he's also just got a tiny little bit of spice in the background that's really, really nice. Licorice, raisins. It's really, really nice. Although I'm not particularly happy about the size of sample you got when I get this.
So this did not come full. And that was all I was left with after I literally halved it with you. So do not think that I got an enormous...
Not that size matters at all, but this is ridiculous.
You know what? Anyway, I think it's quite good to emphasize that I'm not going to say that I'd like to think that we're definitely one of the first distilleries to be experimenting with this sort of wood. It's certainly not something which has come up before, and really interesting. I mean, so many levels to it. It's not what I was expecting. The traditional big sort of sherry bombs that I suppose Billy's famous for. It's not. It keeps all of those GlenAllachie characteristics, but so much more going on there. I'm just going to answer a couple of quick questions that are flying in. We've got one from Russell Brinklow, who seems he's enjoying all of the hand fills right now, which is fantastic to hear. And he's asking what's up next in terms of the hand fills. So the most recent one that came out, which was 10 days or so ago, was the Madeira cask, which we'll come on to taste in a few minutes. And following that, the fourth hand fill will be a Premier Cru Class A or First Growth Bordeaux red wine cask or barrique. So that I think we're waiting for the labels at the moment. Should be hitting the market within the next, I'm hoping, sort of week to 10 days. Unfortunately, everything's on a bit of a go slow at the moment. And it's worth pointing out that these three bottles we have here tonight, or these three samples we have here tonight, and the upcoming one that I've just mentioned, are actually all, Richard, who's been on these Thursday night sessions previously, our operations director, he is actually up there, sometimes even on a Sunday, by hand, by himself, going through the whole process, bottling each cask and doing as much as he can. So from me, I'm going to say a big thank you to Richard, because if it wasn't for his hard work and effort, this would not be possible.
There's no need to push his ego even further than make his head grow even bigger than it already is.
I know, but it's one of these things that there's a couple of people that pointed out in the feed who bought a bottle from one of these retailers online. I should point that out. Pretty much all of these retailers are only selling these bottles online. and we've had lots of comments about how fantastic they are, about how different they are, and yeah, if it wasn't for Richard's hard work actually putting them into a bottle, we wouldn't have been able to get them out the door because our bottling facilities have been closed. So trying to bring anything new and different to market is difficult.
Just a couple of hellos or sort of odd questions. Tony Gibson, how many drams have you had? I presume he's speaking about you, Ben, because you can't speak. Not enough is the usual answer to that. Hi to Patrick. Tasting 3 cask samples for the Swiss exclusive. Always hard work. I know how you feel. Scrolling down, we've a little late. Michael Stewart, handful Madeira just now, followed by the Chinkapin. Very nice. Good evening to Hans. And Steve Laidlaw, the fact you've got your bottle of Chinkapin unopened is terrible. I would get that cracked open, taste it as quick as you can.
So just a couple of people throwing things in. Catherine Baltruschat, my apologies if I'm pronouncing your name incorrectly, just asking us to repeat what the cask is. So it's Chinkapin wood, which is a type of oak that comes from, I think it's the southern USA, Mexico. Correct me if I am wrong, but that's where I have it in my head as it coming from. Something that a little more.
You might be correct. I was always sort of under the impression it was sort of like the Greater Midwest in America, but
quite possibly.
You may be right.
I am happy to be proved wrong.
I say you may be right, knowing full well that I am correct.
Well, I've just done a quick recce there, and it apparently comes from all the way down the Pacific coast of the USA and into Mexico. So we could have all be right.
That's why I consider the Greater Midwest.
Fair enough. A couple of people saying that you think GlenAllachie's done one, Irish Distiller's doing one. As I said, I would like to think that we were the first, but I am happy, to be proven wrong. That may well be the case. I know there's not many whiskey distilleries out there experimenting with these types of wood, but as the price of sherry casks goes up and up and up, I'm sure there will be more and more people looking for the next oak to age their whiskies in, because it's we are restricted by the SWA as to what we can use, but there are still some exciting woods and exciting finishes out there that we can experiment with, such as this.
This is something really, really quite. Sorry to cut you off there, Ben, but this is something really quite unique. It's not. I wouldn't compare it to, say, any other type of American oak or that we've done before, or for other whiskies. It's the cask in itself. I was going to say it doesn't taste of Chinkapin. I don't know what that is, but it's the flavours you're getting from it are very, very unique. Do work really well with the classic GlenAllachie sort of taste, but it just gives you something that you go, this is really, really different to what you may assume it would taste like, or something you've tasted previously. I do think it sort of stands out by itself as something slightly different and odd in the sort of basic sense of the word. Odd is in that it's really sort of unique and different.
No, definitely. There's loads going on in that glass, a lot that I just wasn't necessarily expecting, but nothing that I don't like, which is, and I'm very picky when it comes to my whiskies and things. So, it's great. Worth pointing out, all of our stocks of this have now sold. So as in, we have sold out of it to retailers. Retailers do still have a small amount of stock. So, if anybody is tempted, I urge you to act sooner rather than later, because there may not be too many of them left.
So while we're tasting this, Ben, and we've rambled on about it for long enough, we're now 6-7 weeks into lockdown. What are you doing to keep yourself occupied? give the people what they want. They
What
want to
am I doing?
know what are you doing in your spare time.
Well, fortunately,
to keep yourself busy.
Yeah, well, I got a puppy before Christmas, and I'd like to say it's given me a lot of time to get it trained, which we've been trying, but it's not necessarily the best behaved puppy. So there's been a lot of work going into him, and we bought the house that I'm speaking to you from now about 18 months ago.
I'd hope this was your house that you were in just now for all sorts of reasons.
Yeah.
Not just social distancing and not going into other people's houses, but the fact that you own the house that you're in, that it's not just some strangers that you've went in and decided to.
The last thing basically was to get out and do the garden. And fortunately, we've been lucky enough to have decent enough weather, and I've got a fair bit of space. So yeah, it's I've been out enjoying the sunshine, getting some gardening done. But
very good. Gardening's good exercise then.
Because you're city bound, so what have you been doing to keep yourself going?
I've been running an underground pub. Don't tell anyone. Pretty much the same, apart from the gardening and the puppy. Ordering copious amounts of craft beer online, then sitting out in the garden. Going on quite a lot of cycling. Bought a bike just before this happened. So I'm one of those new cyclists on the road. But doing that, trying to stay sane, I think, is probably the hardest part. And even though I say I'm trying to stay sane, I feel for my partner having to not like it literally living 24/7 with me. So I feel for her. But yeah, it's just getting by, I think, is the what I've been doing most in lockdown, and obviously working very hard and doing these tastings and tuning into other whiskey tastings throughout the week. And yeah, you can't complain, in a very lucky position just now. So then, as I was saying earlier today, now we're able in Scotland to go outside more than once to exercise. That's a joy. Because what other country in the world would you love to go outside and exercise more than once in? Although the weather has been pretty good. Sorry.
Asking about who's selling it. So we will post a list in the comments section at the end with a link to the stockists. It has primarily been limited to much smaller retailers who have been sort of severely affected by the fact that when we initially launched it, it was to support retailers primarily on Speyside and sort of outer reaches of Scotland, and also the money all goes to NHS Grampian, so to support the NHS primarily around the distillery where most of the team who produce GlenAllachie live and work on a day-to-day basis. So, as I said, yeah, we will pop a list of the stockists in the feed at the end, and I believe also there will be a Handful for Heroes section going on the GlenAllachie website as well. So, if anybody is looking for it, they're the places to have a look. So, there's a question coming in from Jeremy Watt, aimed directly at you, Ronan, asking if you're getting any cycling tips from John.
Not essentially, not like tips, so to speak. We do follow each other on Strava, and he cycles a lot further in the same amount of time that I do. But I'm looking at John. He's pushing. I'd say he's probably pushing 50s, maybe well into his 50s. So as a guy in his 20s, I'm thinking a couple of days more cycling a week, I'll be able to cycle past him, no problem. But no tips. I was actually out on the bike like the first week or so into lockdown, and straight into like a pothole drain at the side of the road and just destroyed the tyre and everything. So I've just got my stabilizers off. So I'm slowly but surely getting there. There was a good comment I seen from a John Creasy. Ben, very noticeable that when you are talking, Ronan is tasting. When Ronan is talking, he still manages to be tasting. Thanks for noticing, John. It's actually something that I've put on my CV before, that I'm able to talk and drink at the same time. So thank you very much for noticing. It's a skill. Not everybody has it, but I still do my best.
Something that I think is quite important coming in from Mike Stewart, asking if we think that these sessions will continue after the lockdown's lifted. Because he's saying it's been a fantastic way for whiskey distilleries such as GlenAllachie to keep in touch with people from all over the world. I know I'm happy to do them as long as my Wi-Fi holds out. I think Ronan is happy to do them as long as his Wi-Fi holds out. I mean, it means he gets to have an extra.
Absolutely no way, Ben. Absolutely no way.
No way. Okay, well, I think we may not do them quite as regularly as we are, but I do think it's something that long term we definitely want to keep up and definitely want to keep going. It's something that, as a team, I think we've all really enjoyed doing. It's been great, to be able to get in front of everybody and bring these whiskies and bring the distillery and different parts of the GlenAllachie sort of operation to you. We've had great feedback on them, and we'd be delighted to sort of get a few ideas from the public as to what they want to hear from us, what insight you'd like to have, what you'd like to see, where you'd like us to take you next. I mean, we've got ideas, and we have a program and schedule. But if there are people out there who have something they want to hear or do or see, then please throw it at us, and we'll do what we can.
Yeah, there's been a very enjoyable thing to start and to sort of do throughout the week and stuff, but not just ourselves, but also obviously other distilleries and everything like that are doing them, and it is a great way to interact with people that you may never meet because we look after certain markets or so on and so forth. So no, it's been a really good way, and I was joking that I'm more than happy to take part in these things. It's I know my face doesn't usually look like I'm happy, but no, they are a really good way to sort of connect and to introduce people to GlenAllachie that may not have heard of GlenAllachie before, or introduce people to whiskey because maybe there isn't a whiskey festival near them, or there isn't a whiskey shop, or so on, whatever. But yeah, it's a really good way to connect with actual people all around the world.
Well, shall we move on to dram number 2?
More than happy to.
So while I'm pouring this one, there's just a very quick comment coming from Duncan Mateer asking if we've got any more information on the Spirit of Speyside bottling. I am delighted to say that it is almost here. I am hoping it will be in our warehouse before the end of this month, and we'll have it out to retailers end of the month, end of May, beginning of June. It's very, very limited, so do get in touch with your local sort of whiskey shop and try and sort of grab yourself a bottle. It is going to be a traditional Billy Walker Sherry Monster. It is a Pedro Jimenez Hoggy. Something I'm very, very much looking forward to, and yeah, it is on the way. I think it's bottled. We are just waiting now for the labels to be stuck on, which is great. So on to the next whiskey. So this is the newest of the 3 that we're tasting. So this one came out just a couple of weeks ago, maybe not even that long ago. It is a 2005 15-year-old Madeira finish, bottled at 58.3 ABV. And there's just so much going on there. I mean, I fell in love with this the first time I tasted it. And it just...
As we taste this, I've noticed a few wee comments. Brian from Impex, how you doing? imported in the USA. 80, Ben, you might be able to answer this one regarding cask number. Adrian Carr, is this cask 6870, 2008, 11? Yes, that's correct.
This is cask 687. The Chinkapin, anyway, was cask 6870. The Madeira, the Madeira that we're tasting now is cask 3754.
And to, where was that comment? Colin Beck. You missed Billy. Billy was last week. I can't say you've gone downhill. You've went from David and Billy to Ben and myself. So I'll let everybody be the judge of who's better, the quality of the conversation or the jokes and everything. But thanks for tuning in, Colin.
There's so much going on in the glass here. The nose is so soft and smooth. So much sort of honeyed, soft, sort of sweet notes showing through.
I'm all about the taste. That's the most enjoyable part. What sort of roasted nuts, I'd say. Roasted peanuts and slight sort of caramel, sort of toffee. Have you ever tried those toffee sort of sweeties?
Yes.
That sounds like I'm Donald Trump there, but toffee, the sweeties, it's like that sort of chocolatey toffee caramel sort of palate to it. It's very, very good.
Yeah, great whiskey. That I've always been a lover of dessert wine cask sort of finishes or fortified wine cask finishes, not just sherry. Put those to one side. Just because when you go from Madeira to Marsala to Sauterne to Muscatel, I'm going to give a little plug to our wood finishes range here because again that's my favorite of the wood finishes. I just find that you get so much, and with some of these dessert wine and fortified wine cask finishes that aren't sherry casks, because of the cost difference in purchasing the actual first fill cask, going for something a little bit different, a little bit off-piece to your standard sherry barrels, sherry butts, you can get some fantastic quality whiskies, and I really think this shows through with the hand-fill Madeira here. And I know from seeing lots of comments in the chat, I know from speaking to sort of several of the retailers in the UK that this is something. This is something that they all sort of know and love. I think the majority of them cracked the bottle open themselves the moment it arrived. It arrived in their shops for the first time. What do you think, Ronan? What's your thoughts?
I really like it. Great contrast between this and the Chinkapin before for obvious reasons. Full of flavour, really, as I said before, sort of caramel, toffee, sort of butterscotch. It's quite nutty, maybe a little bit biscuity as well. No, I really like it. It's one of those whiskies that I could sit down and just sip away at very, very easily. And it takes however long to actually get through it. It's very, very, very good. Lovely flavours coming through again. Classic GlenAllachie, in fact, it just coats the mouth, and that sort of finish in the back of the palate just carries on and on.
Definitely. Just looking at a few of the comments coming through. Colin again saying he did hear and see Billy last week. Billy will be back in the future. I'm not going to say exactly when, but we are planning other tastings and sessions with Billy. So please stay tuned and continue to watch our page, continue to watch these sessions. He will be back. I've got a gentleman called Brian who's asking what my position is. He must have missed it slightly at the start. So I'm just a quick recap. I'm the UK sales manager for GlenAllachie, and Ronan is our APAC, Asia Pacific sales manager. So, two very sort of distant markets, or far apart from each other, but
So speaking of what we do, Ben, I always like asking people. Usually people ask, "Oh, what's your favourite or your best moment?" Or like, "What's your well, we'll go strangest, funniest moment. What's the weirdest thing that you travel?" I know maybe in a previous show you travelled all around the world, and what's the strangest thing that's happened to you? Because everybody sees the whiskey shows and the live tastings and maybe comes to a tasting and tries the whiskies and stuff. But what's the strangest thing, or the maybe the funniest moment that you've experienced traveling in the whiskey world?
Well, based upon that, when I told you guys this earlier this afternoon, Colette couldn't stop laughing for about 5 minutes. I was effectively mugged in the back streets of Beirut by a taxi driver for $45 just after British Airways had lost my luggage, which wasn't funny at the time, but yeah, it makes a good story, and it was definitely an interesting 24 hours. Let's put it that way. What about yourself, Ronan? You've been all over the world, Asia.
Yeah, I was thinking about this today, and there's a lot of stories that I can't really go into details about due to legal issues. Just that I find myself being one of those people that ends up in situations that no one should really end up in. The strangest thing happened quite recently. I was in northern Germany, and we visited a retailer, and the retailer was working out of his garage in his house. So we go in and we do the whole, we've got the whiskies, and we start speaking to the shop owner, and hopefully he's not tuning in. He won't be. And we went through the whiskies, and that was fine. And then in comes another guy who he says is his close friend. He's a really good customer of the shop. And I thought, yeah, that's fine. Sit down, have a few whiskies. So we did that, and everything was fine, going well. I'm going through a translator because I don't speak any German. And the shop owner says he doesn't only just sell whiskey, he does some other sort of side activities. And I thought, yeah, everybody's got hobbies. And he says he does piercings, tattoos, and brandings, right? So I goes, tattoos, piercings, right? Okay, brandings, all like maybe on like glass or like wood or something like that. And they're no. And I'm like, oh, what could this branding be? And he points to his friend and goes, show him. And I'm like, maybe they've got tattooing wrong in English, and it's not that, it's maybe something else. And so I'm sitting there, and here, this, we'll say heavy set. This heavy set guy stands up, takes off his top, right? Now, this is at an account visit, and this is the strangest thing that's ever happened to me. And he has his star sign cattle prodded into his chest.
I'm sorry, what?
So I sort of glimpse, look down, I'm looking at the floor, can't possibly look at this. And the importer was there at the time, and he sort of, this is the strangest sentence one of the strangest sentences I've ever heard in my whole life. And he said, he won't put his top back on until you look at it. So I've had to look at this branding on his chest and sort of go, oh yeah, that's cool, yeah. That was the strangest thing. It's the strangest thing that I'm able to tell.
Right. Okay. All right. I'm kind of a little bit speechless, which you'll all know.
Not being mugged in Beirut. I've got plenty of other stories, but that's like a GlenAllachie after dark. That has to be after the watershed if you want to hear about them. Okay. It's behind a paywall.
Well, let's get back to the whiskey and questions. There's a few people asking.
Yes, please.
A few people asking about Karen and Graham, and when they will be on. At present, they're on furlough. However, we are looking at sort of what we can do over the next few weeks, and there is the potential that at some point we can get them on as well. We've got another question coming in saying, how much time did the Madeira finish, the whiskey we're tasting right now, spend in the cask for its finish? So this particular one was pretty much bang on a year. Normally we would do about 18 months in a first fill, but this one was a year, and it's that good. I don't think it needed any more. That's my opinion. But feel free to obviously have your own. Another question coming in. I'm going to direct this to you first, Ronan. Okay. So, question in from Mike Stewart saying, just to play devil's advocate, are there any GlenAllachie expressions that you are not too keen on? Put you on the spot.
Well, thanks, Mike Stewart. That's a great question. Cheers for that. And thanks, Ben, for passing that one on.
That's okay. You can throw it back at me. That's all right.
That's fine. The obvious answer would be no. But I would have to I'll give you an answer, but I would have to say that just because I don't like the whiskey, there's no reason for saying that it's a bad whiskey. Everybody's palate is different, not necessarily that it's a bad whiskey, but because everybody's palate is different, there's not necessarily a bad whiskey. There's just a whiskey that's not to your flavour. And then in saying that, there isn't a GlenAllachie that I would turn down if someone wants to offer me it, especially for free. I did actually try. It's a single cask. Yeah. Very high strength. It was about 60.5. I'm not big into my high sort of ABV whiskies. I find them really, I can't handle them. I find them really, really sharp. That would be a tendency throughout every dram that I drink, and not necessarily just GlenAllachie, but anything sort of upper echelons of the 50s into the 60s. They're not particularly to my flavouring, I guess, because of the sort of high strength. And if I did have one, I'm chucking a fair bit of water in there as well. Not necessarily down to sort of flavour or a release that I wouldn't buy or anything like that, but just sort of preference in whiskey in general. And because I'm such a nice guy, Ben, I will not ask you the same question because I'm not that type of guy.
That's all right. You've pretty much stolen my answer because I'll come in and answer it anyway. In that, out of everything that I've tried for GlenAllachie, I have my favourites. I don't think there's anything I've tasted that I would especially say I don't like. There are whiskies I prefer over, some that I prefer over others, but certainly none that I don't like. Yeah, one or two of the single casks have probably been, that I have tasted, have probably been, not to my palate, and it's purely been down to the fact I found them a little bit too hot, a little bit too much alcohol. But as I said, there are one or two that I think are absolute standouts. For me, the 15-year-old I think is great. Really love it. Got a couple of people coming in saying, anyone going to have GlenAllachie branded onto themselves now? And go on, Ronan, admit it, you've had GlenAllachie branded on your chest.
This is not the topic of conversation that I envisaged this tasting going like. If you're willing to pay me enough money, I'll do anything.
Oh, God. Okay, right. Moving swiftly on. So I think we've got to move on to the whiskey that's probably the most anticipated one this evening. It's gone great guns since we brought it out. It's the 2005 hand fill Sherry Butt. Pedro Jimenez, to be precise. Cask number 901037. or it may appear as 90137 that I've seen on a couple of documents, but it is the same cask. This has got a wonderful colour to it. Big nose, big flavour. It's just, it's what made Billy famous. It's those big sherry bombs, single cask. It says 13-year-old on the label, but because the labels were done in advance, it's actually a 14-year-old. I've had that pointed out by a number of people now. But just fantastic. Been getting great reviews from pretty much everybody I know that's tried it. Have you tasted this before, Ronan, or is this your first outing?
And I'm really looking forward to it. And while we're starting to taste it, a couple of questions. A really interesting one, and right up my street because it's sort of vaguely football related, is that GlenAllachie is a top Prem distillery. But if you get a move abroad to Islay, which distillery would you move to for playing abroad? I'll throw that one straight to you, Ben, seeing how I've asked it.
If I had to pick an Islay distillery, so I'm not a huge peat fan. I do like peated whiskies. There are certain ones that, I could quite happily sit down and drink, but they're not usually the first ones that I go to buy. But out of all the distilleries on Islay, I am a massive Bunnahabhain fan. For years and years and years, my go-to whiskey, if I had to go and buy one off the shelf in a supermarket, not that you can get it in many supermarkets now, is the 12-year-old Bunnahabhain, which is a little bit of a coward's way out because it's probably the least heavily peated of all the Islay whiskeys, but it just has that wonderful sort of smooth, rounded, sort of sweet finish that I love. Yourself, Ron?
Well, I'm going to take the easy way out here and by saying I've grew up most of my life in Campbelltown. So if I was moved to Islay to play for an Islay distillery, I would retire from fake whiskey football and retire to Campbelltown. I couldn't possibly say to big up an Islay distillery. There's some deep-rooted rivalries there that I couldn't possibly go into just now, but I would retire. Russell, thanks for the great question there.
Jeremy coming in, I think questioning my comment about the age there of this one, saying, is it not stored in an inert container? I know the small barrels for filling in the shop have metal inside them. Yes, that is true, but those are only about sort of 25, 30 litres. And obviously coming from a much larger pot, there was an awful lot more liquid still in the cask in the warehouse, which was brought through as and when it needed. So once we got through that sort of small amount that was in the shop, that's the whiskey that I'm talking about. Great question. I love this one. Any specific GlenAllachie casks that you would like to try, Ronan?
I'd probably go for rum.
Okay.
GlenAllachie and rum.
Yeah.
Rum to me is always quite a fascinating spirit and then sort of ex-cask to use. Just because rum's probably the spirit which is closest to whiskey and the story and the different ways it could be made, the different areas in which it's made means it's different flavours and characteristics and everything. And it's really, really good single cask sort of independent bottlings of rum and single cask rum, which is blended rums that are very, very good. You also get some very, very bad ones, but tasting them sort of single cask rums, it really piqued my interest in whiskies that have been finished in rum casks or the full maturation in rum casks, and that's something I'd like to taste GlenAllachie in. It's a rum cask. You get a load of tropical fruit coming from a rum cask, and say it's maybe a little dirty, little sort of roughness underneath with the rum coming through, and then just this mouth-coating, fruity, heather, honey, spiciness coming from this GlenAllachie, and I just think it would work really, really well together. And it's something I'm, fingers crossed, comes out in the future, because I'd really, really be intrigued to try something like that. And what about yourself?
Yeah, for me, it's got to be some of our red wine casks that we've got stashed away. I know there's this First Growth Bordeaux, which is the next hand fill, which I'm really excited about. I've had some wonderful red wine cask finishes in the past from a couple of distilleries, and I tasted one from a different winery to the one we're about to release the first time I was up at GlenAllachie, and it was absolutely outstanding. So I cannot wait to see what's going to come from this one. And I know that we don't just have Bordeaux casks, we've got some Rioja casks and various other things hidden there. So I'd love to get my hands on those and really just have a dive into them and quite literally, why not? It's yeah, great. Couple of other things coming through that I wanted to pick up on. Actually, before we do that, I'm just looking at one or two down that right-hand side. Do you want to sort of say a little bit about this? Because I'm tasting it, and the finish is going on and on and on. But I can't
it's a dram.
From my lips with this one. It's just
It's not really a dram I've managed to get past the nose yet, because the nose is so phenomenal. And I'm most of the time I'll skip past the nose and straight to the palate, straight to the taste. But I've not actually managed to get past the nose yet very much. It's just raisins, plums, sort of dark, sort of chili chocolate coming through, quite syrupy through the nose, honey. Again, I only get a tiny little sample of it, so I don't want to just drink away and then not have any. But yeah, there's something about this. It's just got this huge, fruitful, flavoursome nose that I don't want to delve into the palate on yet.
It's got everything. You know, dried fruit, raisins, sweetness. Then you've got mocha and dark chocolates, and as you said, that chili chocolate, that hint of spice showing. It's just, you know, tasting this, I really do see why it's been getting some of the reviews that it's been getting. Why it's been in such demand. It's really, really good.
Russell again commented in with figs. I would have to agree with him there. Figs is something that I'm really sort of picking up on the nose.
Yep. Fantastic colour to it as well. You know, very rare you see. I mean, even that's just a tiny sort of cask sample that's showing there, and you'll see the darkness, which is, you know, it's all natural. There's nothing been added to that at all. It's quite
a striking colour, I would probably describe it as, without sort of delving into the actual sort of colour of the whiskey itself and what it's picked up from the cask. It is it draws your eye, and then when you delve into it, when you go past the colour into the flavour, it is just mouth coating, quite buttery, I find, as well. That's a soft sort of butter. Lovely.
No, it's so much going on. I might actually have to go and buy one of these while there's still one or two left. That's yeah, it's got me tempted, that's for sure. Bottled at 59.8 ABV.
See that you're saying that there. I'm sorry to butt in while you're doing something, but you're saying 59%, and what I've previously said, and I'm tasting that, and that could be 46, it could be 48, it could be 50. This is, as you said, the upper echelons is 50%, 59%. There's no sharpness, there's nothing like that. So all that proves is I don't know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, no,
Which,
totally. But that's kind of what we were saying. The really, really, really the best quality single casks can and often do mask the sort of high alcohol, high ABV, and this you would never know. I mean, 59.8 ABV. It's effectively 60% alcohol. For me, that as somebody that quite often would pop, in really strong stuff, a tiny drop of water in. No, I would leave that exactly as it is. It's really that good.
no, I'm actually quite surprised at how high ABV that is. It just goes to show that you see sort of judgments about certain whiskies, whatever they are, certain cask types, high ABVs, and they aren't what you would perceive them to be. Normally, that's amazing. That's a brilliant dram.
So, question for you here now. It's quite a complicated question, so we'll keep it brief. But question coming in from Wendy Galbraith saying, if whiskey is made in the same way in another part of the world, can it be called Scotch, or is it like champagne and can only be called Scotch if made in Scotland? The simple answer to that, Ronan?
Yes.
There we go. Yes, it can only be called Scotch if it's made in Scotland. There are all sorts of rules, regulations, and restrictions that I won't go into now as to how Scotch has to be made and what we can do for whiskey to be called Scotch. We mentioned it briefly about the chinkapin and how it's got to be aged in oak casks, things like that. But the SWA has a great website which outlays all of that in a lot of detail. But yes, the simple answer is Scotch whiskey to be called Scotch, or Scotch to be called Scotch must be made in Scotland. Whiskey to be called Scotch. Russell coming back saying his dad was a head gardener in the Highlands and had figs and peaches in the estate greenhouse. And he's never tasted or known anything like it since then. So, yeah, loads of that going on. John Creasy coming in saying, you're doing a great job tonight, Ronan. Really going well. Feels like we've known each other for years. So you've clearly made a new friend there, even though you're not Billy.
I mean, I'm not surprised. I'm a very likable character, but I appreciate the applause. And any more accolades that anyone wants to send in about myself, it's perfectly welcome.
So, as always, we will knock off at a few moments to 8. So there's a sort of 5-6 minutes left. If anybody wants to throw any more questions, we'll do our best to get through them. The reason we knock off every Thursday night at 8 o'clock is because of the NHS clap. We're doing with this initiative. We really like to get out there and support our NHS as much as we can. So, as I said, if there are one or two more, please throw them in.
Question here from Jeremy Watt.
Yeah.
About would you be able to do what Cadenheads did with the Irish ones, mature it partially outside Scotland and put age of maturation time in Scotland? To answer this very briefly, Cadenheads, independent bottler, bottled an Irish whiskey, and the age they had in the bottle was actually the age that it spent in Ireland, because Ireland changed their rules that it had to be matured in Ireland to be considered Irish whiskey. And then when they moved it to Scotland, it effectively stopped aging as Irish whiskey. So I think it maybe had been like a 11, 12, 13-year-old that they released last year or so, and that would have been the time that they matured in Ireland. Every country's rules can differentiate between whether it just needs to be bottled in the country, which I think is Japan's rule. It just needs to be bottled in the country. Ireland, speaking of the Cadenheads terms, is that it's matured in Ireland and doesn't age outside. And so a lot of countries have varying rules. And it's actually, interestingly enough, with English whiskey, they've really just adopted the exact same rules we've got in Scotland. Yeah. They've just sort of taken them and thought, yeah, I was going to make a joke there, but I'll not. But yeah, the English have just taken what we've done in Scotland and just copied it and assumed it as their own. But yeah, so lots of countries have different rules depending on what makes whiskey, or what makes Irish whiskey, English whiskey, Scottish whiskey, so on.
Another great question coming in from, and again, forgive my pronunciation on the name, Rosea Catalin, asking if we have any blended Scotch whiskey coming in the future. Absolutely. We have a brand called White Heather, which we were hoping to have released by now, but unfortunately, due to COVID-19, I know I've said the dreaded C word. We had to postpone the release just because we couldn't get it to all of our markets and things in time with everything that was going on. So it is coming very soon. I won't give an exact date just yet until we know what's happening in various markets with lockdowns and how we can get stock out to where it's needed. But yes, there is a blended whiskey coming from Billy. If any of you have seen any of the tastings and chats that he's been doing over the last sort of period, you'll know that he's a massive fan of blended whiskey, and he's one of these people that's never quite understood why it gets such a bad rap compared to single malt, and he's very much sort of trying to prove how good blends can be with White Heather. So stay tuned and watch this space. I'm quite looking. I haven't tasted it yet. I'm quite looking forward to trying it. Have you tried it yet, Ron?
The White Heather?
Yeah.
Oh, phenomenal stuff. Really, really, really good. I'm not one of these people that maybe thinks I don't like blended whiskies because it's blended, but the White Heather is, to say it's a classic Billy Walker whiskey in the sense that it's really easy to drink, smooth, coats the mouth, delicious. Yeah, the White Heather is a top whiskey. But yeah, as soon as it comes out, I know I'll be buying a bottle because it is a damn good whiskey.
Sorry, I'm laughing here. We've got Colin Beck comparing you and I to Ant and Dec, saying apparently we're much better.
I'm Dec, because I don't want to be Ant McPartlin.
Yeah, whatever. And some really great comments coming through, guys. I've got to say, obviously quite a number of you have actually bought these handfills, so thank you very much for your support, both for us, for our sort of small independents that are sort of based in the far reaches of Scotland, and again, further supporting the NHS. All I can say is thank you very much. Loads of people coming in saying that that some of their whiskies of the year. Mike Stewart saying, great excuse to open up the 2007 Madeira, how much they've enjoyed the whiskey. So, I think that's a great place to probably leave it. We've got
very much
just over a minute to get to our doorsteps and start banging our pots and pans, or I don't know if you're going to get your bagpipes out, Ronan.
I'll swing a cat. If you've got any more questions that you haven't had time to write down, feel free to keep writing down after, and we can come back in and maybe answer a few that we've missed or any that you add in. But again, it's been a great evening to sit down and taste some whiskies, Ben, with you and with everybody else that's tuned in, and hopefully we've cleared a few things up or made things slightly more confusing. Either or works for me, to be honest. And I apologise for all the jokes.
Well, I think the only thing left to say tonight is thank you so much, Ronan, for joining me this evening, and thank you very much to all of our sort of viewers and followers. Please tune in again next week. Slanger.
Cheers.
Good night.